I haven't tuned this since the last time I played it, so that was not too bad. We've had a busy summer, Kat and I, and we're back. Oh, it's good to be back. Welcome back to the Meeple Syrup Show. It is September of 2023,
It
and we're back.
is. And it's starting to be autumn, which is really exciting.
This isn't your first autumn though, is it?
No, but every autumn is my favorite.
Okay, what's autumn like in New Zealand?
So in Wellington, where I'm from, it's the same. There's
Okay,
not really there aren't that many deciduous trees to mark it, like to be able to see that
okay.
it's autumn. But in the areas where there were a lot of, sort of white folk who settled, they planted deciduous trees. So you can go to
Oh, okay,
places, but naturally it's just rainforest. So,
okay.
like tropical kind of
Yeah, yeah,
rainforest
yeah, yeah,
rather
yeah.
than our Pacific Northwest rainforest.
Right.
And so you tend not to get color changes or anything like that. It's just also rainy and colder, but it's rainy all the
Oh,
time. So, like, it rains every week pretty much in Wellington. So,
so you're pretty much okay with living in Portland.
it has not rained for months. Like, we had a kind of weird misty kind of rain the other day,
Okay.
which was exciting, but all the grass is dead. I would
Oh,
love it to rain more.
oh, interesting. I guess it's not quite like Seattle and Vancouver, though. It's not that far.
It does. Once it starts raining, it has a full-on rainy season,
Yeah.
which is really different. But the amount that it rains here compared to the amount that it rains in Wellington is
Hmm.
noticeably less.
See,
Like the total over a year as well.
we are being very good subjects of the British colony talking about weather. That's what we do apparently. Or ex subjects of the British colony. I don't know what we are anymore. Hey, welcome to the show, George, and everybody else who's watching right now. So today, Kat and I are going to talk about this new season, what we're going to do. But before that, let's do a recap of the summer. So, what did we do this summer, Kat? What did you do?
Mainly, I went to a lot of conventions.
All right, let's name them all.
What have I been to?
Hmm.
Since the last time we saw each other. Well, I've been to Gen Con, my very first Gen Con, which was pretty
Right,
exciting.
and we saw each other there.
Yes, and Origins.
Yes, I think we had our last show around Origins, before
I
Origins,
can't
maybe. I
remember
can't
if it was
remember.
before or after.
It might have been before, just because that's the end of June, and that's usually when we stop the
Right.
show. So it might have been either just the show before that we said, "Oh, we're going to Origins," or just the show after. Hey, let's get back from Origins. Can't
We've just
remember.
got back. Yeah, that it's around about that time. I have to actually check my calendar now to see which ones I've been to. But yeah,
You were at Token Con.
Token Con was way back,
How way back was that?
in like
Oh,
March.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That was before. Right. Okay. It's funny. So this is actually fun. Um, Jay went to Token Con, as you know,
Yes, as the
and
special guest.
yes, and he met somebody there who then came and played games with us for like hours and hours at Gen Con.
How neat.
Yeah, yeah, it was so fun. It's
That's
like
super cool.
she is the world champion at mind management. And that's pretty funny because we don't really know anybody else who would, play mind management that much to say that they're the world champion. And maybe one day we will have a world championship of that game. But yeah, she had won the world championship of mind management, and then she found us at Gen Con, and then she played like all the new games that we're having coming out over the next 2 years. So yeah, it was really hilarious, and it's like all from Token Con. So Token Con sounds like a blast. And where is Token Con?
It's in Oklahoma City, and
Okay,
they are
cool.
moving to a bigger venue this year. We've just found
Ooh,
out,
very nice.
and because they've changed the dates slightly, because I was worried because Gamma Expo has changed its dates, and I was
Yes.
worried that that was going to mean that I couldn't go to TokenCon, but they've changed
Oh,
their dates too, so
okay.
we probably still can go to TokenCon next year, which will
Yeah,
be fun.
I don't know if I'll ever get to Token Con. Oklahoma's kind of in this like really weird zone of the world where it's like too far to drive, but not far enough for me to want to fly.
And it's
Right?
very flat.
Yeah, and I mean I'm
So,
okay
like,
with flat, but yeah.
driving all it's we drove all the way across Texas in 2015, which was also very flat, and
Yeah,
long drives and very flat. It's like, how do I stay conscious?
I don't know.
So,
So Token Con was way, way back when, and then
yeah.
some other stuff, and then Origins, right? So
Yes.
Origins, we saw each other,
Yeah.
had fun, it was good times. And then what'd you do after that? You've been to way more cons than I have, so
Yeah, I have. So, then I think it was Gen Con. So I think it was Origins, Gen Con, and then PAX West,
right.
by the
And you
looks of it
did a
here.
bunch of, like, event stuff at Gen Con, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I ran my first, like, at a convention event,
Yeah, how'd that go?
which went really well, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was there, but I'm just asking how you thought it
Oh,
went.
heaps of people came, which was a blessing. I was very grateful because we were off-site. So
Mhm.
running an event off-site is already pretty scary, and I had a month's notice and actually only 2 weeks notice at that particular venue. So I was
Yeah.
like, "Will people come?" And they came. So yeah, that was pretty neat. That was while I was working for Launch Tabletop for a
Yeah.
while there.
Yeah,
So that
good.
was yeah, that was cool.
Okay, and then you said after that you went to
PAX West.
PAX West, and Dwayne
Yes.
O'Brien is saying PAX West was fun.
Yes. And, at PAX, I ran the very first Unpub at
That
PAX
happened at
West.
PAX West, yes.
Yes,
And how did
so
that go?
that was really cool. We got a room, and we didn't have as many bookings as we might have hoped for, but I can understand that, like, paying for a PAX West pass and then spending your whole time in the Unpub room, it's quite an expensive thing to do, so, like, I get
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, so
Um,
for people who don't know, PAX West, and I mean, the PAXs in general are fairly expensive to attend, right?
yes.
They're pretty spendy. For like a 4-day pass for Gen Con, it's not as expensive as PAX. And there's a ton of stuff to see at both those cons. But I think people are more likely to spend time solely doing like playtesting and first exposure playtest hall and all that kind of stuff when they're at Gen Con. But PAX seems to be not that space.
Well, PAX is video games and board games as well.
Yeah,
Certainly PAX
exactly.
East and PAX West are, and that's part of why they're so expensive as well. So, like, the PAX West pass, I believe, was 260,
Hmm.
and so it got closer to 280 once you had to pay for postage and things like that, which is a lot to ask. And yeah, so we did have enough designers though that on the days on Saturday and Sunday when we had designers at tables, we got people coming through constantly, and we were super lucky to get a bunch of games donated on both days. So what we did is we asked people to fill out a little feedback form, and they
Hmm.
got a ticket for it. And in
Yep.
exchange for the ticket, they could trade that in to basically buy one of the games. So we'd allocated ticket values to the games that we had donated. So like
Yeah.
this little one here might be worth one ticket. This one here is slightly bigger. It's worth two,
Yeah. So you
and
might
so
have to
on.
play a couple games to get that one, right?
Exactly. And we had people coming back all weekend going, "Have you got more games for us to play? Because we want to earn tickets." So that was
See,
pretty
you just
neat.
incentivized behavior. So hopefully
Well,
they
I
actually gave
mean,
good feedback. I don't know.
oh, they sure did.
Did
There
they?
was
Good.
actually, yeah, because they gave all of their feedback in person, and then they came and they filled out the little form as
Oh,
well.
okay.
And the
Okay.
form was just basically like, rate this game out of 5, and how would you describe it to a friend?
That's
So
good. I like that.
it was just
Good.
simple, and yeah, and then we got people coming back so much actually that I ended up putting my brand new game Pelicanery, which I had not even played myself, out at a table, and had a friend that I had just made that weekend run that game so that there was another table running because there were so many people who wanted to play games. And I see Dee Dee O'Brien
Right.
is saying that yeah, they tested Bag of Chaos, which was cool. Diddy had a bit of a disaster with forgetting the game at home and having to get a bus all the way
Oh
back and then
no.
back again. So that was like an hour each way, if I'm right. So that's one of those oh no
Oh
moments. But
no.
yeah, luckily we were able to sort of rearrange things so that there was space to continue running that game a bit later.
Cool. And then what was after PAX West then?
That's the most recent one, I think. I'm off to Geek Girl Con in a couple of weeks.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
I
It
think
feels like it's been much longer than that.
yeah, I think some other people that I know will be at Geek Girl Con. Geek Girl Con is out west, correct?
Seattle.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, most of my Seattle friends will probably be there. They like it quite a bit. So that's great. So what else did I do that was different? I didn't do anything much different. I think so Gen Con was great. Went to Gen Con and I brought my friend and co-designer David Killing with me. David is an industrial designer. He is wonderful. He is like super, super talented, like way more talented than Anybody deserves to be, or but except him because he's super sweet. So he deserves to be as talented as he is. Um, and it's funny because we went around to a bunch of booths and it's like, "Oh, I made that," said David. It's like, "Oh, cool." Like he made the parts that are for like some of the most popular games of Gen Con. Queen at Night, which was the new release from not Hunters, but Darrington Press, so
Yes.
Critical Role. He made the clock. Like he designed that clock.
Oh,
Right?
cool.
And so it was funny going around with him. He's looking at it, and goes, "I don't think they built that right." And all this kind of stuff. It's very funny. And I found out later that one of my friends who works for Darrington had to put together all 20 of them like in like very little time because their shipment actually got stopped at the border and then they got it
Yes.
later. And so Alex, my friend who's the producer for that company, was basically putting together those clocks like in the wee hours, I think, to get them ready for the next day.
So
And he
funny story behind that actually. We were involved in getting that shipment released.
oh, good.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
was it at the port? Was it where was it?
it was being held at customs, but customs hadn't told anyone because it hadn't actually been processed by customs yet. And
Oh.
my friend Waleed, who I was staying with,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
his partner was sitting with us and was actually able to basically American voice because we all had non-American accents. Was able
Oh,
to
very funny.
American voice to get us the assistance we needed, and eventually got that package unlocked and sent in time. So that was pretty
So
exciting.
funny. Oh, hey, Amy's here. She also says that PAX West was so fun. And
Yay!
Roberta Panetta, it is great to see you here too, Roberto. Um, so Roberto has a game coming out that I've heard about. Have you heard about this?
I have heard about it.
Is it Gemstones of Iridecia? Something like that?
Yes, yes, it's got a lovely name.
It does have a lovely name.
Mm.
So
It
see, I mean,
feels shiny.
it does. So, I mean, just the name is, like, enticing. I would love to
Yeah.
see that someday. Great. So nice to see you here too. And Bag of Chaos Bag of Chaos sounds just hilarious. It just sounds like it should be a bag of chaos and very fun. Gems of Iridecia. Very nice. Good, good. And Amy, of course, is Pink Tiger Games, and she has all those really cool communication conversation games, which are just brilliant. So that's
And
great.
Amy
Good stuff.
was, testing a new game at PAX.
Ooh.
Amy, remind me what it was called. I was watching people coming back and
Mm.
talking about it, and they were sort of chatting together about what they'd just played and were very excited about it, but I can't remember the name of it. I'm so sorry.
Gotta like a game that makes you talk about the game after you play the game.
Yes, because they were filling out the forms at my table where I was. So I
Oh,
wasn't playtesting, I was encouraging people to do that and managing and listening to them
I
all
really
talking
like
to
that
each other.
idea. Kat, that's a really cool idea. Did you come up with that? Like, tell me how you would explain this game to another person.
The game is called Hurt Party, by,
Oh,
Amy
yeah, yeah,
Bayer, A Game of Bad Apologies,
yeah.
yes, and, the idea that I was using, I actually got from TokenCon. So at TokenCon, what they did
Oh,
is they filled out Wii forms, and,
we
I
mean
stole.
small Americans.
Oh, yes, yes, little forms, small forms. And they were able to choose from a selection of prizes. And what I did is I stepped it up a bit because I thought I knew some of the things that I was getting donated were different values. And I didn't want
Right.
people to just be like, oh, well, I'm going to take this massive game. And then the other people are like, oh. So I wanted to make it a little bit harder to get the
I
massive
think that's
games,
smart. I think that's
and
smart.
it
Yeah.
worked, and
Yeah.
it was people were really stoked about it and kept coming back to see sort of, "Ooh, what else is there?" But also, what other games can I play? Even after they'd bought all the games they wanted, they were so invested in
Hmm.
understanding that there were 3 batches of designers whose games they could play, and
Yeah.
then all the designers got their comment forms at the end.
Amy said that she loved the comment form, so fantastic, and she kept them all, and she's going to make, like, a bonfire out of them and, like, burn them and send them up to heaven. I'm kidding, I
Or
don't
a
know.
collage.
She didn't say that. I said that'd be what my people would do. We would send it up to, heaven in
Hmm,
as smoke. Um, so, yeah,
that's
I
a
think
cool
that's a great
idea.
idea. And Amy, that game, the Hurt Party game, uh, there was one post, I don't know what post it was anymore, I'll have to go think about it. Um, where Amy and I were talking about apologies, or Amy was talking apologies, and I said something that would make a great game, and she said, "Shh," because she's like already thinking about how that could be a game. So Amy's always on top of things. That's great. And she also has the coolest clothes. So if you
Mhm.
want to see what Amy wears all the time, you can follow her on her socials, and like she just wears the coolest clothes. It's so fun. Always fun
Oh,
clothes.
and I forgot to put it on, Amy, but, every day, apart from right now, because I just went and washed my hands after we got back from the medical center, so I didn't wear it to the medical center because I wanted to keep it clean. Amy made me a beautiful little, friendship bracelet that I've been wearing
Oh.
every day, and
Oh.
it says Dreyer Ink, and it's got lovely little rainbow, beads on it, and Amy made them for a bunch of people, and it was pretty neat. It was, yeah, it felt really special. Thank you, Amy.
A game about bad apologies sounds fun. It does, right? Sounds so good. Troy has a game coming out soon too. Troy has a game uh, about beetles and bug collecting, which I really quite enjoy. It's got
Ooh,
super nice art, like
say more.
shiny. Yeah. Well,
Mm.
Troy can say more. Troy, say more about your
Trey,
game.
Trey Moore, soy. What am I doing? Um,
So Troy is in Korea and he helps
oh,
run Light End Games. And there's a game coming out that is going to be soon. Oh, hey, Jason Tam. My friend Scott Veen Vliet wants to challenge you for your title at Clask. He's not Australian though, he's Canadian. And he came 16th, not in Canada, but at Gen Con when they did it like maybe 5 years ago, Gen Con 2017, I think. He came like 16th at Gen Con and he's like, I want to play in this national thing. So he would love to
ooh,
challenge you at some point. He would challenge you just to challenge you. He just likes Classic a lot. There it is. Pins and Beetles. That's the name of it. I didn't want to get that name wrong. And yes, it is not at all AI art. It is beautiful, beautiful art. Claudia Jankowska is the artist, and it is glorious. It is like I love bugs, and so here's a neat thing, Troy. Maybe I'm wearing one right. I am. So this is a squid, and this is a squid
yes.
from this game here that my friend Daniel made. Uh, Enemy, and the artist and I said, I love that art so much because I love squids and octopi and stuff like that. I said, I love that art so much. I would wear that on a shirt. And he's like, the next day, he's like, okay, go buy them all, man. So I did. I bought every single piece of art that he made onto a shirt. And so I now have like 8 shirts with like anemones and clownfish and mantis shrimps and squids and octopus and all this stuff. So if you did that with the Beatles, I would also do that. I have to go buy one of each shirt because I like that. That's awesome. Yes. So the it's a great little game. It's a fun little kind of tile placement um, game where you're going around the world collecting bugs, and you learn a little bit about the bugs too. So that's pretty fun.
I love all
Um,
of this.
yes,
This
I love
sounds
bugs.
like 100% a me game.
Yeah, Jason. Yeah. Well, you know what? We're gonna find out how to get to Helsinki from Canada for the Classic Championships of
In a
2024.
plane.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, just like, how do you win the trip to go play in the Classic champ? Have you ever played Classic? Have you played Classic? Oh, come on! You gotta play Classic. Classic is like like a modern classic tabletop game. It's called KLASK. Classic. It's an action game where you have like a magnet underneath the table and you're moving your pawn on top of it to bounce this ball around. You've probably seen it.
Oh,
It's got a
yes. No,
blue playing field. It's wooden.
I'm
It's
pretty sure Danny just posted about playing that because
sure.
she went to the champion. I was like, what is there about Helsinki I've just seen?
Oh,
Yes,
Danny loaded.
Danielle Standring.
Standring. Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
She might have.
she went there and she was playing and did not play very well because she wasn't trying to actually compete. But yeah, no, now
Oh,
I
she
am.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
she
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
so that's the game, and there's apparently a world championship, and Jason is the Australian champion.
Well, Jason,
There
hidden
you go.
talents. I
Yeah.
did not
Oh,
know
there you
that.
go. Danny was commenting this year. That makes total sense
Yes.
because Danny would make all sorts of spicy comments about that game, I'm sure. There you
Mm-hmm.
go. She is hilarious. All
Yes.
right. So, hey, thanks,
Thanks,
Sean.
Sean.
Welcome back to you too. What did we do after that? So, I was talking about David. David and I went around to a lot of booths. David is so if you've ever watched Tom Vassel's, that little thing called the Dice Tower, and Tom has often used a marble run in some of his videos. David's the guy who made that marble run, and he made all of the modules for the marble runs, and he hand delivered the last one to Tom at Gen Con. And this is David's first Gen Con. This is the first time David has ever met Tom. And it was just nice. It was really nice to be there and share in that moment with David and see him like just get to meet some of the people who love his work. Like Tom was like, "This guy's a genius. Everybody come look at this guy. He's a genius." So it's pretty fun. And we got to pitch our games to people. And it was very, very well received. So like I said, David is a brilliant industrial designer. He actually used to make bikes, like professional racing bikes.
Ooh,
That's his area of speciality. But he loves games and puzzles, and so I'm trying to get him into the industry and trying to get him
yeah.
to know people and meet people. And so it's actually really interesting. Within a couple days, we got emails back from lots of publishers who not only wanted to see the game again or talk about the game, but they're like, "Oh, and because I always said, hey, and also if you have problems that need a mechanical solution or a cardboard mechanical solution, David's your guy." And so within a couple days, we had like, "Hey, could you make like a display case that did this?" He's like, "Yep." He had a contract for that. And then somebody else said, "Oh, we need this game part that does this. Can you make that?" And he's like, "Yep." And so he now has a couple little projects that will hopefully pan out into bigger things for him, based on just meeting people, right? So that kind of goes to show you that not only is it important to get to cons, but it's important to like shake hands and meet people and just tell people what you're good at, and maybe people will
Yes.
find a place for you. And I guess the other thing is have a friend like me who is willing to be your wing person and help you out a little bit and introduce you to people. And like I'm his biggest cheerleader. I love the guy. He is remarkably talented, like I said. And anytime I could like just pump him up, I'd be like, "This is the guy who made this," right? So find yourself a cheerleader. Get yourself a person who loves you like Sen loves David. How's that? I think he's a
I
wonderful guy.
mean, I've just written that down because I have a couple of problems like that. So, David, I'll be in touch. Um,
Can you link David's socials and contract info? I don't know if I can give you his contract info, but I can find his contact info for you. Yeah. Yeah. Problem makers are in surplus. So you are correct that everybody does need a problem solver, and David is an amazing problem solver. So you can actually find his stuff at like Woodfish Games, or Woodfish Toys. Sorry, Woodfish Toys on like Instagram and stuff like that. Like WOODFISH Woodfish Toys. Yeah, that's it. So I
cool.
will put that in here. And David's going, "How come I got all these follows on one day?" And it's like, "Well, because I mentioned your name on a show." Woodfish Toys. Yeah, on YouTube, on Instagram. And it's funny. The stuff that he showed on those channels is very fun and very neat, but it's not at all like the breadth and depth of what he can do. It is amazing. I'll show you something right now, actually, because I have it in my hand. I might have shown this before. I don't know. So here's what he does. This guy. I have a couple things that we built together. And if you go on Woodfish Toys, one of the later things that you'll see is the game that we're making right now, which is like building with like polyominoes, but vertically into like this three-dimensional building thing. So I have this problem where I had a game where I needed the players to know how many things they guessed right, but not which of the things were right out of the things that they got right. And so David made me an analog computer. So this computer, as you can see, I don't know if you can see this, but it has like, you can hear that, and you can see that it's going to push things. It has like recipe cards, like these are the ingredients, right? That you slide in the bottom. And on top of that, let me see how, I don't know, I can get this out, but you have the formula on top of that. Oh, here it is. Right? See, this is the formula. These are the three correct ingredients.
Lift it up a bit.
Oh, sorry, you can't see it. You have
Yep.
the correct ingredients here. You have the guesses here,
Oh, this is so cool.
and you put marbles on top.
Yeah.
And then you do this, and it makes everything fall through. Now, if you lift it up and stuff falls out, the number of marbles that fall out are the number of correct answers you have. But you still don't know if it's A, B, or C that's correct.
That's so
Unless all
cool.
three marbles fall out, and then you have A, B, and C are correct. But if two marbles fall out, it's like, is it A and B, or B and C, or A and C?
Yeah.
Right? So yes,
That's so
he
cool.
is ridiculous. Yeah. He is just phenomenal guy. So he has a laser, he has a 3D printer, he has all the stuff at the house to make all the things. And so yeah, we basically I come up with weird ideas and he makes the stuff, or he'll make something and then I'll make a game out of it. That's how we work together, which is wonderful because he's made all these very toyetic things that don't really have a game. And any game that he tries to make is a little less gamey than publishers really are looking for. And so we've worked together on coming up with a couple things that are blending the two things together nicely, where we have this really cool piece, like a really cool action piece. We're making a game right now with Beatles, Troy. That he made these Beatles. He made these things. He made these things. I can't even show you them because I don't have one. But they're just two pieces of. You could even probably make them out of two pieces of cardstock, and then there's a wedge in the middle, and then there's an elastic band around the whole assembly. And imagine that you had a beetle that had like claws at the front and legs at the back. And the front piece is two pieces that do this to open up and close, and the back piece is really just a back piece. And it has a wedge that holds the three pieces together in the middle, plus an elastic band. And when you push down on it, it shoots whatever it was holding in its claws forward.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's like, how'd you do that? And it's just out of like three pieces of cardboard, or in our case, we're using like MDF board and a wedge, just a wedge, and then an elastic. And it does this cool, kind of snappy action piece that feels really neat. And so we were thinking about dung beetles because it can hold a ball in its legs and stuff like that. But that's pretty shitty. Just a joke. Okay, cool.
You
So
could
yes,
also connect the dung beetles to the Egyptian myth about, them pushing the sun,
yeah, could
and
do
that
lots
could
of
be an
stuff.
idea.
Yeah, there's lots of cool stuff. We are thinking heavily about lots of things. And he loves puzzles. He's a very puzzly thinker, as you can imagine. Like, he's an engineer, an industrial designer, and so he thinks about all this stuff all the time. And yeah, I introduced him to a lot of the games and puzzle people. So the people who make puzzles, like at Think Fun. We've talked to Ravensburger. We talked to everybody, and it's just nice to basically introduce him to the world of gaming, right? Because he loves all the games. He's played games by all these people, and he's had some meetings with people in the past, but he's always getting told that's too much of a toy and not enough of a game, right? So we gotta weave it all together now. So it's good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like the opposite of Hungry Hippos. You're right, Troy. That's kind of what it is. Okay, cool. And then after Gen Con, I think that was it for a while for me. And then last couple weeks, I went to Matricon. Matricon was actually John Gilmore's wedding. So John, of course, is a really good friend of mine, and we went down to Montpelier, Ohio, which is honestly only 5 hours from me, so it's not a big trip. But it was very nice. Lots of people from the industry, lots of people from both sides of the family. And Tara and John got married. It was lovely, and we played games for like 3 straight days. And I couldn't think of any better wedding that I've ever been to, not even my own. Because I think when you get a bunch of people who like games, you might as well just play games. Like, why do all the traditional stuff? That's no fun. Do the stuff that's interesting and cool.
Yeah, it looked like it
uh
was amazing.
yeah, it's good times, good fun. Um, yes. So Jason's asking, is that a big issue? If a game is too much of a toy or an activity? Yeah, I would say that sometimes it can be, right? It depends a lot on the audience and the price point and things like that. So I know from making junk art, that a lot of people would say, you know what? When our kids are tired, we don't actually even play the game. We just use it to stack, and we love it for that. And that's why they find value in it beyond just the game. They're like, yeah, it was an expensive game, but it's also a toy that the kids can play with. We take it out when family members are here that don't play lots of games because it's easy, right? But then when we want to get really strategic, we play certain cities because Junkart has like, I don't know, 10, 12 cities that are varying difficulty levels. So lots of stuff like that. So, but it is something that publishers think about, and it depends on their market and their audience. Like, will my audience accept that this is a little bit of an activity, or it could be used as an activity? So there's definitely companies where, and I think it's mostly like like hobby game companies where their audience doesn't want variants. They just want the best version, right? For the first time out of the box, give me the best version of the game. Then maybe with expansions and whatever, show me variants there. But then I think for a lot of audiences that are maybe more family oriented, they kind of want those variants up front and they want those things up front. Because I have like a box of a game that I made with Think Fun it's on the box. It's like two games in one is right on the box. It's like they advertise that kind of stuff because it's a different audience. Whereas I think like you couldn't do that on a hobby game and get away with that. Like it just wouldn't be the same. So yeah, activities versus toys. And we see sort of the opposite sometimes as well. Like if we think about the tree in Everdale, the tree in Everdale doesn't really have a purpose outside of it's looking cool. Sometimes it actually even gets in the way of people seeing it if they're sitting around the table. But it's there for some reason, right? And the vice versa is also true that if a game has some toyish feel to it, that some people may not like it. Some people just may see it as, oh, it's too much of a toy. Um, but I also think there's a total market for that kind of factor in a game where, but it just depends on your audience, right? So I go to this one con, and actually this happens at many cons where there are like that one game that they bring out every year and the people love it, but it's really just a toy, right? So things like Battling Tops. So there's a Battling Tops event at Geekway to the West every year, and it's like a very very well attended event because you get to claim the championship for the year, right? The same thing at Gathering of Friends. There's like a Looping Louie contest, and a Looping Louie is very much just this plane that goes around in a circle, and you hit a button to make the plane jump up when it comes in front of you, so it doesn't knock your fruit out of your stock of fruit, right? And Cat's like, "What are you even talking about?" Go look it up, Loopin' Louie, or
Okay.
the Star Wars version, Looping Chewie, which was interesting because the original version was a 4-player game, but no, when it became Star Wars, it became a 3-player game. Weirdly, anyway, there you go. Don't get me started about that tree. There you go. Yes. And yeah, Roberto is saying that he has the Looping Chewy version, so where only 3 players can play. Now, I have friends, and you can probably find it on like Thingiverse that have made like you can buy 2 sets and you can turn it into a 6-player version of Looping Chewy with like a little bit of an adapter at the bottom of it, I think. And Troy is saying that Jenga seems very toyish, not gamish, but look how great that worked out. Jenga, by the way, is like my perfect product. Like if you were to ask me, what do I think in the game hobbies in the game space is a perfect product? Jenga, the original version of Jenga is quite literally like the perfect product in many ways to me. So I love Jenga. I think it's a wonderful game. Okay, so that takes us up to September, where we are now. And that's about halfway through the show, which is perfect because now we want to talk about what are we doing next. And what are we doing next, Kat?
So next week we have Sabrina, who is bringing us Diatoms, which is probably one of the games I'm most excited about that I have played in prototype form. Um, Partly because diatoms are fascinating to me, and I've considered drawing them and have actually tried drawing them, they're and partly because her game is just absolutely spectacular. It's beautiful, but also it's really nice and puzzly, and I love a good puzzly game. I'm not going to spoil it too much because I want Sabrina to have stuff left to say, but that
Mhm.
game will have just launched on Kickstarter at that point. So we'll be talking to her about what it feels like to be launching your first Kickstarter and how exciting. And yes, oh my goodness, it is such a beautiful game.
There it is,
Um,
Diatoms, a game of microscopic proportions
yes,
from Ludoliminal.
yes. And so she's self publishing and will be talking to us about what it's been like to get this far and how the campaign's going and all those sorts of things. And then the week after that, we have Emily, who has just popped up in the chat. Hi, Emily, who will be telling us what it feels like. She and I joke a little bit about, being hashtag famous, as in we've kind of just shown up on the scene, but already quite a few people know who we are. And Emily has some great games that she's got in progress that we want to talk about and have a look at. One of them is about pirates and serving delicious pastries to your
I love it.
captain, and you can basically blow them up to combine them. So if you want, oh, I'll let Emily explain it. But I played it, and that's another game I'm very excited about. And then she's also got a co-op about cats, which in itself sounds incredibly hilarious because anything involving cats and cooperation is not going to go well. So I'm really looking forward to actually playing that one because cats. Oh
There's
yeah,
a cat in her
and a cat.
YouTube pic. There you go.
Yes,
Excellent.
exciting.
Right, and then what happens after that?
Well, we've got a few ideas for things that we might do. So I've been speaking to some of my friends who are content creators and asking them if they've got some advice, particularly from the perspective of being a small self-publishing designer rather than a designer, as Sen and I discussed earlier on. Someone who is purely designing does not need to think about this, but so many of us are self-publishing or considering self-publishing. So it's very important to understand what else you're taking on if you choose to self-publish, which includes all of that online presence that you have to have and interacting with other content creators, because you create stories about your own games, you're showing people about your own games, you're telling them all of your design stuff, all of your art stuff, building a community. But also you need people whose job this is to do previews and reviews, and that's important to know the difference between those. And how do you get the right people? How do you understand who's the right person to talk about your game? How do you make sure that they understand the timings that are necessary? Because no one's going to look at a Kickstarter without the right stuff in it, which includes having different content creators talk about it. So that's the kind of stuff that we're looking at covering. And we would love some ideas of other people who would like to be on the show and other topics you'd like to see us cover. What do you want to know, folks?
Yeah. So everybody out there in Meeple Syrup Land, there's a bunch of you right now. If you want to tell us topics, questions that you'd like answered, people you'd like interviewed, whether it's a very specific person or like a classification or a job that you go, I really want to know about the person who does the layout for rule books. Can you get one of those people? We'll find them. Just tell us what you're interested in. So right now I'm looking at my Blue Sky account, which I'll add that to my socials at some point. It's just very limited. But my friend Alan Barr, who is he's Gallant Knight Games, so he publishes role playing games, and he started to publish comic books as well. And I wanted to talk to him at some point about open gaming licenses and hacking role playing games and things like that. So I think we'll have
Mm.
Alan on at some point. He's been on the show before, just like for like short bits and things, but he's a great guy, and he would be good to talk to about role playing games. If anybody out there is interested in starting to write role playing games, Alan has made like lots and lots of them and self-published them, or and he's published other people's stuff too. But he's been really looking into, how do you use an open gaming license? And for those of you who don't know what that means that you have license to use the rules for a game system, but not necessarily the lore. So things like Dungeons and Dragons has an open gaming license that got contested last year ish and created
Controversy.
a whole bunch of hubbub. And that they kind of pulled back on at the end of it because they realized they were losing their community. Anyway, so lots of stuff like that. So Alan's somebody else who I'd love to add to the list. I'm just going to add him to our list over here. We have a list. It's over there. You can't see it, but if you could, you would see me adding. Let's add Alan Barr here. So if you guys name a name, I will literally type it in right now and say, let's see if we can get that person. So come on, give us some names.
I just thought of something and then it went
Yeah.
away again. Um, hmm. Nope, it's gone. That is just gone. Um, oh,
Oh,
logistics folks. Well, yes, actually, I was thinking something along the lines of logistics. So, yes, good call, Troy.
yeah.
Um, I think it would be really interesting to hear from people who deal with those sorts of areas. And the thought that I had was something in that topic, and it's, my goodness, just gone.
Yeah, we've had people from like Quartermaster and whatnot on the show before, but we can definitely do it again with other people from different, fulfillment systems and logistics places and whatnot. So that'd be great.
I thought of another thing actually,
Oh,
that I had forgotten to mention. I was very lucky to be given a spot in the Gamma Horizons Fellowship this year.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And what that means is that I get to work with a wonderful mentor who is Kurt Covert from Smirk and Dagger.
Yes.
Which means that I'll be learning a lot of these things. And so I will probably be asking very pointed questions along those lines.
Well,
Um,
maybe we should put it on air.
yes,
Kurt's a
exactly.
wonderful human, so
I was just
he
thinking
would
having Kurt on
probably
the show
gladly
would be
be on
pretty
the show.
cool.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah. So that was
20
the
questions with
other
Kurt
idea.
Covert. There you go.
Yes, curly
And that'd
questions.
be that'd be the guess, I guess, would have to be Kurt then.
Yeah, I
That's
guess
fine.
so. No,
Well,
no,
the
not
title of the
actually
show is
present.
20 questions with Kurt Covert, then it has to be Kurt.
Okay, I'm glad we've
Oh,
established that.
is this why you played Night Cage? Or did you just play Night Cage off
No,
the
amazingly not. That was super funny because I had vaguely heard of it, and then my friend Sasha picked it up and said, "Let's play this," and I was like, "Tell me a little bit about it." And he told me, and I was like, "Yes, that is the one that I had in the back of my mind as one that I wanted to play as a study game for
Yeah,
Long Lankan."
yeah,
And he was wanting to play it as a study game too. And then we had just played it and analyzed it as designers rather than playing it for fun.
yeah,
And then like the next day I had a meeting with Kurt and I was like, "Oh, you did the Night Cage. Oh, that's amazing." So yeah, it was pretty cool.
yeah, that is seriously the only Kickstarter video that's ever got me to nope out of the video. 'Cause I'm claustrophobic, and the whole
Oh,
if you've seen the video, it's like
I
crawling down a
haven't.
hole. It's like, I can't do that."
Oh
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
Luckily the game doesn't feel like that, although I have to say the game is designed to make this to have the effect that it had on me
Mhm.
where I was just like, "No, I don't like this. I don't want to keep playing." And because it was a co-op, we kept playing,
Yeah,
which was fine. But I was just like,
yeah,
because suddenly there were monsters everywhere, and I was just like, I can't see how to get out of this. I hate it. And that is what it's supposed to do. You are supposed to
yes.
feel like that. So it was really effective, and I learned some stuff. So
Troy
yeah.
also asked a question about
Ooh.
how about anyone who knows how about obtaining big IP licenses for games? Yeah, that's not a problem. We can
Yeah, that's
probably
a good
find that.
one.
We're gonna call that big IP hunters, just like big game hunters. Big game hunters. Big game IP hunters. How's
Yes.
that? And James Takanaka, who is in consolidation distribution, said you have got a really good mentor,
Sure
and
did.
he
I
is
am so
correct.
impressed.
He is
I mean,
correct.
seriously, we've had two like 2+ hour meetings so far, and that is such an amazing thing for someone to give as a mentor because usually it's like half an hour, and I'm just like blown away grateful. And it made me go back through all of my prototypes, some of which are behind me here, and actually go,
On her
I
new
made
lac
quite a
shell.
few games, yes, on my lovely new shelf. And I, like, actually sort of felt really validating because I was like, "Oh, yeah, no, I've made some games. I've made some games that are worth working
Mhm,
on. I've got some ideas that are actually valid. I'm a real designer. I'm a
mhm.
real boy."
Yeah.
Um,
Dwayne is asking about pitching to companies like WizKids, and
mm,
Roberto is saying that Pam Walls, got WizKids published game.
Yes.
So Pam is awesome. Pam is up in
Yes.
Vancouver, Canada. She's originally from Alberta by way of Toronto. So
Love you,
I've
Pam.
known Pam for years. And yeah, Blob Party, which is a really cool game, got released
Yes.
over Gen Con. And so she got to
Yes.
see it birthed at Gen Con. And if you listen to my other show, Ludology, we just had Pam on 2 episodes ago.
Awesome.
So about 3 weeks ago. So episode 305, maybe? I think 306? 306. 307. 307. She's episode 307, I think. Go take a listen. She does have like consulting hours. If you want to grab her for consulting hours, she could talk to you about meeting with WizKids. Yeah. And
She's super cool.
yeah. Now, WizKids has gone through some changes, just so you know. And so they have a new person in charge of acquisitions and games and all that kind of stuff. So that is really interesting. Sean Richardson asks, I wonder if there are any other places besides Salt Lake running protocons that are independent and separate from any larger cons. So yes, depending on what you're talking about. So what I think you mean is, are there prototype cons that run independently from, say, Gen Con or Origins or PAX or anything like that? And yes, there are lots of them. So there are Unpub minis that run. There are protospiels that run all over the place. That
Metatopia?
are yeah, Metatopia is its own thing.
Yeah.
So Metatopia is run through not through DexCon. DexCon is another one of the conventions. Avi and that team out in New Jersey run that. Metatopia is like the design convention for that particular group. And
Ah,
yeah, so that's there, which is its own separate thing. More into story gaming and role playing games, but definitely board games are there as well. But yeah, Protospiel and Unpub are kind of the two bigger organizations that do things. Unpub is its own thing, whereas Protospiels are kind of run independently under a banner,
mm. And
right?
there's Spiel Online as well for everyone
Oh yeah,
who's
yeah, yeah. There's
unable to get
online
to.
versions of most of these
Yeah.
things. There's like an Unpub online too, and or there was during COVID, and might still be. I don't know. But yeah, so Unpub has like the mothership event in Maryland in March, but then has all of its little satellite ones that are at sometimes other conventions, sometimes by themselves. So it just depends on how they want to run them and who's running them and what space they have and things like that.
First Exposure is a good call as well, Roberto. Double Exposure runs,
Yes, Double Exposure,
First
that's the name,
Exposure,
sorry.
yeah.
Yeah. So, yes, Double Exposure does Metatopia, does DexCon, does, First Exposure Playtest Hall, does, the I can't remember the name of their team that goes and does playing for and instructing for publishers who may not have staff. I wanna say, like, it's not Rangers, but they have, like, a name for them, right? A group. Protospiel Online runs 3 times a year. It's a great community. Yes, it is. It's
Next one's in
wonderful.
January.
Yeah.
And Troy, I see you're saying board game social media folks are good to hear from. Yes, that's one of the groups that I'm looking at working with, and getting a few more of them sort of popping in and telling us a little bit about what's useful, and maybe some kind of like trend report as well is always interesting. But
Yeah. That's
yeah,
right, Sean. You are correct. They are envoys. That's right. It's the envoy program through for double exposure. Right, right, right. So yeah, they do a lot of stuff in that regards as well. So yeah, lots and lots of stuff we can talk about. So keep letting us know, what do you want to see? We've got um
we could
logistics, we've got IP, we've got media, we've got whatever. What else? What else?
we could ask the double exposure folk if they wanted to tell
Sure.
us what it's like to organize stuff.
Yeah.
That's always interesting. It's nice to sort of get that backstage pass a little bit and find out what's going on behind the scenes. Um, I mean, the kinds of questions that I've got going on at the moment are things like, how do you actually prepare to have a booth at a convention? So I'm sure that some people could talk to us about that. Are people interested in hearing about that? Like how you get yourself to a convention, how you have a booth, how you plan all those things?
Yeah,
Um,
what do you call, like, boothing?
yes,
Boothing
boothing.
101.
I
Let's
think
turn
that could
everything
be
into
quite
a verb.
interesting. Yes,
Yeah.
verb everything, verb it
Yeah.
all.
Verb all the things. That sounds like
Yes.
something that sounds like a game Amy could make.
It does sound like an Amy game. Amy, I hope you're still here. We come up with an idea for you. Oh,
Verb
and,
all the things.
some more game jam type things would be interesting.
Oh, just to do one. Yeah, yeah, for sure. We can
Yeah,
do another one.
yeah.
I'd actually like to find out how far. I think out of all the ideas, J Bell was the closest
Yes.
to making something real. So I want to know what
I
I
think
don't know
Jay's
what he's
still
doing.
working on that game,
I'm sure
right?
he is. I haven't talked to him since
Yeah.
like yesterday, so I don't know what he's. I don't know
Since
what he's.
yesterday.
Yeah, I
I
had a
mean, that's
question
been
for him yesterday.
ages.
It's ages, absolute ages.
Ages.
Yeah.
Um,
What else
what
is
else?
there?
What else?
Huh?
So what happens in the I mean, I think it would be quite interesting to actually do a go to woe of like what happens in game design, like from the start. How do you get that idea and turn it into a published game? And not necessarily in one episode, but it could be interesting to just actually go through that in one episode and maybe have some people who can give us those aspects of it
Sure.
because
Yeah.
so many gaps, like
Yeah. Yeah. Dwayne is saying that boothing 101 is something that he would like to see. There you
cool.
go. Yeah. I think it's really interesting because I've helped booth a
Hi, Jen.
lot. I've seen a lot of different booths. Um, been in a lot of different booths, and there's like all sorts of varieties from like super expensive, like tricked out booths with like doors and hidden compartments and like moving
And
parts.
smoke machines and
Yeah, no, 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 no,
dragons and
there are.
lights and
So
yeah.
my friend drove they drove like a rig, like a truck, an 18 wheeler into the Gen Con hall for their release of Big Trouble in Little China because the vehicle in Big Trouble in Little China is a truck, right? It's a transport truck. The Pork Chop Express. Come on.
Wow.
Yeah,
No,
so
I'm
they
just
had
I'm
that
just
in there.
thinking of driving that whole thing into the
You can, because it's got like they
I
got big roll
know.
up doors, right? So it's
Yeah.
you sorry, we're just driving this in here. And then I remember Jasco one year drove like a sports car into the space because they had like a a racing game that they were promoting, I think. I don't know what they were doing.
That's so extreme. I'm
Yeah.
like, "Should I get this size sign or this size sign?" And
Like,
you're like,
should I
"Drive it
bring
as
a Corvette or
yeah.
whatever other type of muscle cars there might be? I don't know cars that well.
Um,
Oh, yeah. Hey, Jim, it's good to see you. Sean is saying, I'd like to hear from creators who make things for upgrading or making bespoke versions of games, like the stickers from Levity Games or metal coins or other components.
what
Interesting,
about inserts?
right?
I mean, David could be interesting for this as well. Like,
David.
your David Killings.
Oh,
In
yeah.
terms of, like,
I mean,
how, engineering bits. As slightly
sure.
I've done a leap there.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, he does do that. He just doesn't do that professionally yet. But I do know other people who do that
Mm,
professionally, like Iron Kitten, and Game Trays. Obviously, that'd be
yeah,
cool. Yeah,
yeah.
insert design, like
But I
functional insert design.
yes, that sounds cool. But I do Sean, I don't wanna lose your question as well. I think it would be really interesting to talk
Yeah,
about
yeah,
the
bespoke
upgrades of
game
bits.
components
I know that
upgrade.
Ammon Anderson does a whole like, has a whole company making stickers and things
Well,
like
yeah, that's
that.
that's that's like
Levitt yeah,
Levity Games. There it is.
yes, that's why I was but also, like, there are a whole lot of, companies on places like Etsy, where that's just their whole scene where they're doing that, and I think that's pretty interesting. Ooh, packaging, yes. Balancing protecting the game and the box and protecting the environment's quite a good one too. I've noticed a lot more people moving towards the little round sticker,
Yeah,
which is all good if you have the privilege of being somewhere where you can guarantee that what's in the box on the outside is going to protect the game on the inside. I know that a lot of places where it's a lot more humid and where the delivery system is less reliable
yeah.
have
Oh, for sure.
objections to that. So it's a whole there's a lot to consider. I'm personally on the side of no plastic, please, but I do understand where the
Hmm.
practical considerations are coming there.
Yeah. Well, maybe we should get Roberto on here to talk about booth. He said that he's telling Dwayne that he'd be happy to help with booth questions. That he organized booth for his previous
Mm.
company for 15 years and experienced just about every problem you can imagine. So
Well, I would particularly love to pick your brains actually, because I've got 15 years of craft market experience, and I'd love to understand how that transitions into booths because there's so much in common and so much not.
yeah,
I'd love to. Yeah, I think that would be really cool. And Roberto
and
has a question.
yeah, I'd love to hear about balancing the line between stretch goals and deluxe versions of games with crowdfunding.
Oh, oh, that's pretty controversial, that one actually, because there are people who are just like, no, don't use stretch goals for
Yeah.
anything. Stretch goals suck. And then there are people who are like, well, my stretch goal is just so that I can print more expensive cards, and I personally think that's what they're for. And then there are social stretch goals, and yeah, that could be quite an interesting
Yeah,
one.
it's actually kind of funny because a lot of people are talking about Jay, my co-designer's most recent campaign for the book that he did on the design book, the learning how to design as you're traveling through time, and how they're perceiving how he's doing his stretch goals. So it's interesting. It's interesting
Mm.
feedback. Yeah,
Yeah, people have feelings,
yeah,
strong feelings about stretch goals. I think that stretch goals make a lot of sense if you're basically saying, okay, so my bulk price for this is blah until I reach this many units. And then at that point, I can afford to make this a little bit better, which I think is what from having backed Kickstarters for a long time, I thought that that was what a stretch goal was about, but it's really morphed into something very different now. And it's interesting how the culture around stretch goals has changed quite a lot, and the culture around deluxe as well. I'm still auto backing deluxe versions of pretty much everything whenever I can because I feel massive FOMO when I see people who got the shiny one and I didn't. And I'm having to really crack down on myself about that. So I only back a game if I can afford to back the deluxe now. Um,
yeah. I mean, I never don't get the deluxe. I don't think just because that's what I would have bought anyway. Like I just trick myself. I just basically lie to myself and say that is the only version of the game there is.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, it is,
Right.
but I was overbacking. I have got too
Ah, I
many
see.
games, unplayed still. If anyone's seen our Christmas video that we took last Christmas, we're really only about 30 games deep into that, and there were something like 300, and all my Kickstarters have been arriving since, and it's just anyway. Speaking of shelf space versus shipping economy, Troy, that is a good call. We could probably wrap into that. What I'm starting to see is kind of this fatigue around backing Kickstarters and so forth. People are starting to sort of they're moving away from crowdfunding emotionally in some ways, which I think is quite interesting. Oh no, Sean, no, I can't deal with that one.
No, we're not gonna do that one.
No. I
No.
hear what you're saying, but I cannot. No. I have fought that one for, it feels like my whole life. I don't think I can handle any more of it.
Oh, that's an interesting one. So Didi is saying, I want to see more stretch to shrink campaigns, more backers, lower price. Does anyone even do that
Mm.
more? So you know what does that? GameCrafter. GameCrafter does that.
Yes.
Where GameCrafter, the more units you sell, the cheaper it gets for everybody, which is
That's the
interesting.
crowds, what do they call it? Crowd sales.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 There's lots of cool stuff there. Um, Yeah, the state of crowdfunding. We're always talking about crowdfunding, Jason. So I mean, guaranteed, you come on this, you come one week, we'll talk about one thing about crowdfunding, and the next week we'll talk about a different thing about crowdfunding. But yeah, so we can get Nicole back on. She is the game's lead outreach for Kickstarter. We could have somebody else come on from a different crowdfunding platform. So lots of stuff.
It would be
Yeah,
fun to get all 3 of the big crowdfunding platforms on at once.
that may never
And
happen, but
I know,
you're
but
you're right.
it would be fun. I don't think we could do that. Do you have Backer Kit and Game Found connections? I
Of course
think
I
I
do.
can.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we can
Well,
find them.
that's good then.
George asks, "How about a discussion about that decision point around pitching to a publisher versus self-publishing, and how it might inform the game design itself?" That's a great discussion that we could have. Self-publish versus pitch.
And
Uh,
that one has been covered and covered and covered, but it's never been covered enough. because
No,
the
and I think
decision constantly changes.
I don't think it ever gets covered as a topic. I think we ask people about that a lot. I think we
Mm.
discuss it a lot, but I don't think we've ever really done it on the show as a topic
No,
and
I don't
had
think we
people on to
have,
talk
yeah.
about that. Yeah.
I've seen it
So
in a
great.
lot
I
of
love it.
different yeah, it's a
Yeah.
good one.
Well, I mean,
Um,
we answer that question every day on game design
exactly.
forums, right? Where it's like,
Yeah.
should I publish this myself or should I pitch it to a publisher? So, well, what do you want to do? And there's some very, answers that are standard and conventional and trotted out all the time. But I think on this kind of forum, we could get a little deeper and talk about personal experiences and all that kind of stuff that you just might not on a forum, right? So that's a great question, George. Thanks.
And the workload involved. Understanding all of
Yes.
the aspects of the workload, that would be
Sure.
very useful to know. Um, what else have we got? Oh, box and packaging design for retail shelves. I think, James, that's a really good idea to talk about that, particularly to understand from the perspective of not just like as a game designer when we're thinking right from the start when we're designing our product, but also from the perspective of retailers, the people who are moving the game around for us. So, like consolidators, what's the word I want? Fulfillment, postage, all of those other aspects, and our manufacturers and so on. I think it would
Yeah.
be really interesting.
Yeah. I
How
like
much?
Jim's topic as well. Sorry. Go
Oh,
ahead.
I missed it. Where? Oh, yes.
No, at the bottom, Jim said,
Yeah.
topics about post funding, what to do after funding.
Mm,
What do you have to do? There's so many things that people don't think
mm,
about. Like, how do you get rid of all that other inventory that you bought because you got a price break at 5,000 units, but you only funded 4,223, and now you have 777 left, and you're going, what do I do with these all? Inventory management, that's it, right?
yes. Yep.
E-commerce, alternative sales channels, all those things are super important. And I think we have a lot of people in this chat itself that could probably lend their expertise to some of this stuff.
And the decisions
Yeah,
involved as well. Like, if I'm setting my goal for a Kickstarter, I'm say aiming to make 2,000 copies because I want to put 500 copies into this and 500 copies into that or whatever. But I need before I do that, I need to understand what that's going to cost, what I have to set up, who's going to pick it up, who's going to what it's going to cost, all of those sorts of things. So, but those are things you have to decide before you do your Kickstarter. Otherwise, you are going to be screwed. And oh, and understanding setting the MSRP as well before you do it's really important too. There have
oh
been a lot
yeah,
of
yeah.
discussions about discounting or not discounting that and what it does to you. That would be an interesting one.
Yeah, all that stuff is very fun, very interesting. Setting Kickstarter goals. So
And
I think a lot of people
MSRP.
think, yeah, a lot of people are still in the Kickstarter groove, right?
Hmm.
That's the way the dreams get made, apparently. All right, cool. So we've got a lot of stuff to get on track with here, Kat. The fans, the viewers. I don't want to call you fans. Your viewers. Your people who
They're
view the
memes.
show. Yeah, the meeps. Meeps have spoken, and this is kind of what they want. Oh, just before we go there, Sean has said I had recently had a great discussion with a rep from a manufacturer in China. And it was enlightening about the entire process, including challenges and things that people might not be aware of, right? And that's exactly, kind of what we'd like to elucidate on this show. Shine a light on
Mm,
the stuff and the people who you should get in contact with, right?
mhm.
Um,
How to get quotes, all those
yeah,
sorts of things, like
yeah.
what do you actually do?
You can be fans. It's okay. Um, I do not have an OnlyFans, just so you know. The expertise is if you have an option other than self-publishing, then don't self-publish. Um, Yes, you think your take home is more, but mental health and well-being is maybe more important than that. And I think a lot of people who self-publish eventually realize that, oh, this is stressful and oh, this is more than I thought it would be. But then there's some people who really find their groove in it. Like they're like, oh my gosh, I really enjoyed this. Like Jay loves this. I do not. So he can go and do that. That is totally fine by me.
Well,
Right.
Kurt, my mentor Kurt is just absolutely loving it, and I'm thinking, well, maybe if I can learn the things that he loves, maybe I can learn to love that part and handle being my own publisher because that's what I would ideally like to be doing, but it's also
This
just
isn't
so
Doctor
much.
Strangelove. You don't have to love the bomb. Right?
Fair.
Fair.
Yeah. Mhm.
Cool. All right, everybody. It is past 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and I'm going to turn into a pumpkin very soon. I have an 8
It's
o'clock
too
class
soon.
tomorrow. Like, who schedules an 8 o'clock class? Not me. I didn't do it. The computer did it. So we have a computer system that schedules all our courses for us, right? So the students are so mad at me. They're so mad at me. Like, Professor, can't we change the time of this class? It's like, no, the computer did it. That's my answer. The computer made me do this. I too do dislike this 8 o'clock class. You think I want to be here? I do not. I like 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock classes. I do not want an 8 o'clock class. And so they're all very upset. Um, because, and here's the thing, it's a unit, my class that starts at 8 o'clock tomorrow, they had a class tonight till 8 o'clock. So they had me from 3 to 5. They had a break till 6, and they had a 6 till 8. And then they start again at 8 tomorrow morning.
Oh, that's not right.
And that's one unit. That's one section. The other section doesn't have a class like that. I have a schedule like that. So I think this poor unit, this poor section is being treated unfairly.
Yeah, that's
I do
rough.
actually do think that. I'm just blinking because it's funny. But no, they actually I don't think it's fair. I think it's very unfair to them.
No.
So I am righteously indignant for them. But anyways, okay. So this season, I actually don't even know what season this is. I have no clue how many episodes we've done of this show. I used to count them. I used to say episode 103, episode 304. I don't know anymore. Someday we'll maybe restart. We'll do a reboot at 0. I don't know. But yeah, we'll see you guys all next week. We're here until Christmas time, December, and then we'll start another season that I don't know what season it is in January. But until then, we've got a bunch of stuff to look forward to. And we'll that is probably all the stuff you all asked us to do is enough to fill the
Sounds like
whole.
a season.
It sounds like a season. Thanks a lot,
Yeah.
everybody. We appreciate it. All right, it's great to connect with you as well, Roberto. It was nice seeing everybody here. I hope you guys all had a wonderful summer and that your September is rolling along fine. For all of you who are teachers, welcome back. For all of you who are students, welcome back. For all of you who are parents of students, welcome back. For everybody else, also welcome back. We'll see you guys later. All right, nice to see you all. See you in a bit. Bye. We need like extra music, extra outro. I don't know, whatever.
Outro.
Outro music. Eh.